Hello, beautiful friends. Welcome to the Best Mom Ever podcast, your place for learning how to create a close relationship with your teen, even if they have already shut you out. I'm Allison, and I want to help you get out of struggle and into trust, happiness, and confidence with your teen without throwing pills at the problem. Thanks so much for listening, and we are glad you're here. Hello, beautifuls. It's Allison again, bringing you the Best Mom Ever podcast. And here we get to pull apart so many topics that are important to your relationships with your teenagers, very specifically to help you have great relationships with your teenagers. We want to have influence and leadership on the young people in our lives, or with the young people in our lives, to be more specific and accurate. So we're going to need some tools. So I'm here to share those tools with you today, and we get to talk about validation. Oh, this one is so important. It's so important in all our relationships, not just relationships with our kids, but do our kids need our validation? And we're going to dive right into this. So let's talk about what validation is. Let's talk about what validation is not. Let's talk about how to validate and what it's going to mean in the life of our young people when we are able to use these skills. So validation is seeing our kids, hearing our kids, and understanding them. That is basically the most elemental aspect of what validation is. So I'm going to pull up a definition for you real quick. According to Merriam-Webster, and it's not the first one on the list, it's further down because we're talking more about the emotional human experience of validation and not like the medical science version, even though of course we'll talk about science today. According to Merriam-Webster, to validate, a verb, the second B version, is to recognize, establish, or illustrate the worthiness or legitimacy of. So we want our kids to feel worthy and legitimate. That is why we're going to validate them. So what validation is treating our kids like they are intrinsically valuable, that their experiences are real, that their feelings are real, and it's okay to have them, and that we see them, we are present with their experience. So if we can do that, wow, our relationship with our kids is really going to improve or just be good. Okay, so our kids want to be seen, they want to be listened to, they want to be understood. But here's the thing that can be really tricky about validation, and the reason that people resist it is because they feel like they are agreeing with their kids, especially if they're doing something that, mom or dad or, auntie or whoever's raising them disagrees with. And it can be really tough because we have like a values conflict with what they're trying to tell us. And the reality is that we are not agreeing just because we're validating our kids' experience, okay? So their feelings are not, no matter how you feel about your values and where the conflict is, they are allowed to feel what they feel, and you can acknowledge them without agreeing with their opinion. So another thing that people often get wrong about validation is this whole sense of like false affirmation, like just lavishing on the praise. It's a little bit excessive, and it doesn't really feel like we have a full understanding of our young person's experience. Maybe if we can tone that down a little bit, it will be a little bit more validating for them. And I'm going to just help us to understand validation by actually talking about invalidation really quickly. So what invalidation is and what effect that has on us. So invalidation is when we treat someone like their feelings or experiences are insignificant, unacceptable, unreasonable, wrong, incorrect, or unimportant. Okay, nobody wants to feel like that. Let's just say that. So how does this make you feel? Oh, don't be silly. You don't need to feel that way. It's not a big deal. Okay. And even it's going to be okay in the wrong context can feel invalidating. So we really want to be careful. Like, it can be great to hear that everything's going to be okay. But if we haven't taken the time to empathize with someone's experience, then it's going to be okay can actually feel invalidating. So we'll talk about some ways to validate in a little bit. to make sure that we're not doing this invalidation thing. But invalidation is really dangerous. Research is indicating to us that it's linked to poor mental health outcomes such as self-harm and borderline personality disorder. So suicide was in 2010 was actually the leading cause of death among young people, and I would imagine that is still true. So validation can even, when we talk about the research, be a predictive factor in resilience after exposure to domestic violence. So we can actually see some impact of when children's experiences are heard and understood, that we can actually see that they are less harm. There's going to be less negative health outcomes because of their experience when they get validated. So this validation piece is super important. So I want to come back to validation since we've talked about what it isn't and we've talked about what invalidation is. I want to give you a couple of examples of when I've been validated in my life and it's been really powerful. So, as some of you know, I am relatively new to running a business. I run a small coaching business for moms of teen girls, and I would love to talk to you about that if you're interested. But when I was first starting out, I had this opportunity, and it was really amazing to get to share some live content with my audience. And I had people come to the first day and experience with me and share and interact. And then I had some people come to the second day and share and experience and interact. And I had actually reached out to a friend to be there with me for my third installment of this particular live series that I was putting together. And she was actually, so she came to the third one with me, and she was actually the only person there. And it was pretty shocking. It was sad for me as a new entrepreneur, putting myself out there, being seen, being vulnerable. And I gave that entire presentation basically to an empty room plus her. But I did it. We did the whole recording and she did her best to participate. It was definitely not her style to jump in and share feelings and stuff like that. Like I was encouraging the imaginary audience, so to say, to do. And afterwards, she just was like, wow, like that was really hard. I saw it and it was super brave that you went out there and you did it anyway. You put yourself out there and you took the risk and you went forth and you did the recording anyways. So that was really a validating experience for me. Like she witnessed me, she saw my struggle, and she acknowledged it. She didn't make a big fuss. She didn't, try to lavish me with a bunch of praise. She just saw me and noticed me. Okay. So it doesn't take a ton to validate. You just have to be present enough with our friends and family to be able to acknowledge their experiences. Okay, and then I had another time I was talking to a friend, major kind of like turning point in my life, and I had to decide if I was going to go back to a career that had drained me in the past in order to kind of make financial sense of my life at that time. And as I was going back and forth with her about the things, it may have seemed like the logical choice. And she said, she's a really great friend. And she said, it seems like, for you to make this decision, it fills you with despair. And she just described my experience so accurately that I was like, yeah, I felt so acknowledged and seen in that moment and heard and understood that it was really, really powerful. And I've been able to go back and draw on that experience and kind of remember her summation whenever I've doubted my decision making about that choice. So, a couple of examples of when validation has been really powerful in my life. So, how do we actually do this for other people? We want to acknowledge one another's experience or acknowledge our teens' experiences, especially so they are very aware of what everyone else thinks about them. And so for us to acknowledge their feelings can be really powerful and kind of provide a little bit of relief to some of the stress that they're under. So, really simple ways to validate, like, I see that you cleaned up your room. I see that you did your homework. Oh, look, you put away your laundry, right? It's super simple. You're just being present with what happened. You're just being present with the acknowledgement that they did something that was important to you. We don't have to make a big fuss to create validation for people around us. We want to see or share in part the fact that we understand that someone else's experience, someone else's feelings has value, and that it happened. And even just seeing that, even the empathy that's created in that exchange is going to be really powerful for our young people. Their feelings are real, and it's okay for them to feel them. So, as parents, we love our kids. Man, we love them so much, and it is hard for us to see them in discomfort of any kind. And so, whether they're angry, whether they're frustrated or sad or depressed or anxious, it can be really easy to try to like slap a band aid on that feeling and say, like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's not that big of a deal. But if we can slow down and just hear them and just be like, wow, that's really tough. That hurts. Do you want to share more about that? I can't imagine what that feels like. Or maybe we relate to them a little bit. Maybe we say, like if I was in that experience, I would feel that way too. That's a really powerful one if you don't agree, because if you were them, if you had the experiences that they have, if you were living in their perspective, of course you would feel the way that they feel. So it's never wrong to say, if that were my experience, I would feel that way too. Another really powerful tool is naming an emotion. So maybe our young person that we're talking to is sharing with us an experience and we're seeing them, their nose is flaring out a little bit, maybe they're turning red, maybe they're getting agitated. It can be really nurturing to actually acknowledge the feeling that we feel like they might be feeling. So you got to be a little bit careful with this because sometimes people are going to get defensive if we say something like, wow, you look angry. But if we can pull back a little bit and be really empathetic and use the right tone, we can say like, wow, like it feels like you're really frustrated about this situation. Like that sounds tough. I think I would be frustrated too. Like if we can name that emotion, then that takes some of the power away from the feeling because someone else can see us, which I guess is sort of the whole thing about validation. All right. So when we're validating, we're not defensive. Okay. Oh man, this is hard. Okay. So if you struggle with this, send me an email. It's okay. It's okay to struggle here and want to be defensive when our kids have big feelings. Like because in so many ways we feel like it's our job to protect our kids. And so when they have, feelings of depression or anxiety, we're like, oh man, like I should fix this. I'm failing. And so it's really easy to personalize it. But if we can be not defensive, if we can be just open to allowing them to have their experience, then it can be really powerful for them. So I want to give you an example. I had a parent that was struggling with their teenager who said, I don't trust you, mom. And, mom's trying to pull it apart and like understand why her kid is feeling distrust. She's like, there's no reason for you to feel this way, which again is super invalidating. I completely understand why mom felt the way that she was feeling. But as the young person, we want, for the young person, we want to acknowledge their experience. When the young person says, I don't trust you, or maybe something unrelated, like you always yell at me, you're like, I don't always yell at you. So it's easy to like do that defensive thing. But what if we slow down enough to say, wow, that must feel terrible. I can't imagine what it would be like to not be able to trust me. Like that is so hard. I can't imagine like how challenging that is for you right now. Can you just start to think of how that young person is going to respond when, we flip that. So we're not, going to fight against the feeling. We just say, yeah, that's a feeling. It's there, right? It's a real thing. Okay, another way that we can validate is to repeat back what the person in our relationship says, okay? Because this might not just be your teenager. This might be a friend or a significant other or your husband or partner or whomever, okay? So the reframes. I hear it. I hear you saying this. Okay. Like this one is so powerful. It's crazy because I'm like, I feel like I should have to work harder, but you don't have to work harder. Like this works with my kid all the time. It'll be like, I want this. I think I need this. And I can actually be like, I hear you saying that you want to, watch your show. And that's enough. Like at that point, he leaves it alone. We're good. I hear you saying that you're mad at me right now. And like, we don't even have to keep talking about it. You don't even have to like go through it. I don't have to apologize. Just like, I hear you saying that, what I said hurt your feelings. That's it. That's good enough. Like, we don't have to overthink it. This is totally just simple stuff that we can do here. Okay. So let's go through again. Validation is really being with someone's experience and allowing them to feel it and not disputing it, acknowledging it, being okay with that being their truth. And we know that validation doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything a person says. It doesn't mean that we need to lay it on really thick with a bunch of praise, a bunch of dramatic expression of our feelings about them. Like just seeing them is enough. Okay. Invalidation can be really, really harmful, especially when it comes to, and I actually didn't talk about this before, but our LGBT community, non-binary people, or non-typical expression of gender, or minority expression of gender, I think is the better way to say it. These people experience a lot of invalidation and it can be really harmful. And there's more research to support that. So saying things like it's just a phase or referring to someone as their old name. My cousin actually changed their name and it was just a personal choice. It didn't have anything to do with gender expression or anything like that. It was hard for me at first to just like accept this new name that this person wanted to be known as their identity as this new name. He actually wanted to be called by his grandfather's name. And it was a stretch at first, but then I was like, this is right. This is what this person's truth is. And I get to call them by the way that like as their adult self, they chose that this is how they want to be referred to. And I get to respect that. So that's really powerful. And then when we validate, we really just, all we have to do is acknowledge the person's experience. Like, yep, you feel the way that you feel. Your experience is real and it's okay. And it doesn't change our relationship. Like, I will accept you and acknowledge you regardless. Okay, so we want to show our kids that they're valuable, acceptable, and their feelings are real and their experiences have happened. I'm going to put some references and like links for some of the mental health outcomes and things, research for you guys if you're interested in learning more. And I'm going to leave you with this kind of final thought because if validation is still really hard for you, if kind of having this easy outline isn't easy for you, then there probably is some bigger stuff in here behind for you. Maybe you do feel like you've been dismissed or invalidated in the past. And so I wonder for those of you that are having that experience, like in your own mind, are you dismissing or diminishing your own experiences or feelings? Are you dismissing or diminishing your own experiences and feelings, or are you acknowledging them and being okay with the fact that that is your truth? That is your reality right now. Okay. Thank you all so much for listening. It's been such a joy to connect with you. I always love to check in and hear back from you. If you want to like, subscribe, rate the podcast, I would love that. I don't know what all I need to ask for from you guys. If you want to reach out to me, AllisonMichelleO@gmail.com. You can send me some insights that you gained from listening to this podcast today. And I hope you have an amazing, amazing, beautiful day and you have opportunities to practice all this great stuff, especially for your own well-being and mental health. Have a great day. Lots of love. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you know that you want to have a great relationship with a young person in your life, but you are still struggling, I have an opportunity for you. I am a parenting teens strategy specialist with years of experience working with parents to build stronger, more connected, peaceful relationships with their kids. And I am filling the last handful of spots in my Best Mom Ever private program. If you love what you hear and you know you need more support, book a free Trust and Freedom Breakthrough call with me. On that call, we'll have the opportunity to get clear on what you really want in your relationship with your teenager, figure out what might be missing from your parenting strategy, discover what might be blocking your relationship and keeping you from that closeness, and really learn how to make your young person want to share what's going on with them, their heart, okay? We'll discover what it takes to get the peaceful, connected relationship that you want, even if you think it's too late. These calls will be available for a limited time, and they are free, so go ahead and grab one. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.